Showcase 2 all-male panel today. I have 12 wonderful male panels on the show today. We're going to talk about themselves, their books, and everything literary. Are you ready to begin, fellas?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
I'm ready.
Yes, we are.
Let me
Yes,
roll.
ready.
All right.
Ready.
Okay, we're going to start in alphabetical order. Nick Anderson, I want you to tell us about yourself, your books, and then I want you to tell us where we can find you and your books.
Absolutely. So a little bit about myself. I am from a small town in southern Arkansas, the Southern Plains, Southwest Arkansas. Stand up from a little town called Nashville, and it's a population of about 5,000. That's if you include all of the cows and the cats and the dogs and all of that. So I grew up until about the age of 7 without running water. And so my book title speaks to a lot of what I've experienced in my life, which is called From Poverty to Prosperity, The Truth About the Wealth of God's Love. I'm a family man. I currently reside in Phoenix, Arizona, where the weather is still hot. For those who are missing some of that heat right now, I can send a little bit your way. And, you know, I have my beautiful wife and we recently purchased a home here. And of course, we've got 4 beautiful kids as well, ranging from the age of 15, about to be 16, all the way down to I've got a 2-month-old as well in the home. Also, a lot of people don't know this as well, but, you know, my childhood was filled with a lot of poverty. At some point in time, you know, the only thing that we were rich in was the power of love. And so, you know, I think it was Bob Marley who said that, you know, some people are so rich that the only thing they have is love, you know. And so, you know, we were extremely poor, but we never knew it, if that makes sense. And so growing up in those environments, though, one thing that was forever prevalent in my life was God himself. And so in the book, I describe a lot of, you know, what has propelled me to come into the existence and being the person that I am today. I'll share a little bit from my childhood. So I grew up under the tutelage of sharecroppers. So my grandparents both were sharecroppers. And, you know, the ironic thing about being sharecroppers is most of you probably already know, sharecroppers were supposed to inherit the land in which they were farming at the time. And even in those days, my grandparents still didn't inherit the land. And so I'm in a fight right now, or a battle, so to speak, in regards to the land itself. My grandfather was all things. If you think about, you know, those old days, my grandfather was a carpenter, he was a mechanic, he was a plumber, he was, you name it, he did it. He cared for the people of the neighborhood. And again, you know, that's what really instilled a lot of the values and the hard work and the ethic that I did. If you saw my grandfather, you saw me. I was there with him, almost everything that he did. As a matter of fact, at one point in time in his life, he built a wagon to pull me behind his riding lawnmower to take me with him on his jobs in the neighborhood. So I say all of that to say that is one of the major inspirations around my book, From Poverty to Prosperity, the truth about the wealth of God's love. And also, you know, as I grew up, I got the opportunity, I was blessed with the great opportunity to be able to travel. And so I've traveled to many different locations and seen and experienced a lot of different people. And those people have shaped and impacted my journey, which again, that was another big inspiration for why I decided to write the book. And it originally started, my journey towards publishing originally started with, you know, just a couple of Facebook posts. So I posted, a few things on Facebook in regards to, you know, either events that had occurred or events that were going on currently in my life. And as I shared those those moments, I started to see the impact that it was having on others. And so in seeing that impact, I decided, you know what, let me try to publish some of these articles, man. And that's where the journey really began. I posted a post September the 24th, 3 years ago, that said, if I published a book, who would read it? And I was surprised by the reactions that I got from a lot of people. And again, when I set out on the journey, I really didn't know what was going to happen with the publishing journey. I didn't necessarily think that I would ever become an author. But again, as I continue to travel the world, I continue to just see the extreme experiences that a lot of other people were having, and I began to live in their perspective, and that is what ultimately caused me to, to begin that journey. I am a self-published author as well, so that's another thing that a lot of people don't know. I'm self-published. I did the whole publishing, editing, everything that pertains to my book. I did all of it. That's including the design of the cover and everything. And the cover is actually a photo from one of my trips that I traveled to. I went to the pyramids that exist today in modern day Mexico City, or down south of Mexico City, a place called Teotihuacan. And as I took that image, it reminded me of the, what I consider to be the other ruins that my life has started, or my journey in life has started on. And that was one of the inspiration. I said, the people of that time, even in the ruins that we see today, they still, their civilization still exists. What we have is remnants of what we see from what they did that was so great. And the thing that was the greatest force in my life was love. So I wanted to read a quick passage, if I could, from the book around leadership. And I think this applies to what we see in the world today. This is from page 24 of the book, and it focuses a lot on my definition of what I believe a true leader should be. Now, to give kind of a pre-statement, I talk a little bit about what we see going on in the world today as it relates to hatred, as it relates to love. I see, I talk about the matter of perspective as it relates to getting into this passage. So here's the passage. The thinker is one thing, just as the planner is another. He who can do both is the true essence of wisdom. Servant leaders understand the importance of being able to do both. Those who try to control/rule will be oblivious to these qualities, even if they are right under their nose. A lot of people think leadership is about power and control. Thus, they feel like just because they have a title, it entitles them to display their rule. The mistake in this logic is that without people to lead, there would be no leader. A leader is only as good as the people he leads. A show of might belittles those who are under the ruler, and what eventually happens is people start to rebel against control. A true leader knows how to relinquish his control to those whom he serves, as this is where true leadership bonds are formed. Neither power nor control will sustain over time, as they are merely weak bonds built upon a feeling of superiority. Those who understand the importance of being an enabler to the talents of the people they serve will allow them to be a vital part of the team's success. If you want to truly be a leader, empower and enable the people around you. Inclusion is where the best and brightest lights get their shine. Be willing to dim your light a little to see how much a difference it makes in others. So that's just a small passage. Again, the book itself is dedicated to my brother. May God rest his soul. He passed away when he was 21 in a car wreck. And the book can be found at my website at www.stepbyfaith.com. So again, www.stepbyfaith.com. I'm also on Amazon. So for those that, like to jump on Amazon, I'm also on Amazon as well. You can search my name, Nikia, Nikia Anderson. You can find me there. And then I also like to share really quickly while I have you guys, my YouTube channel. I put a lot of my videos of the different destinations that I travel to, just some of the world experiences that I've had, some of the people whom I had the opportunity to be able to be blessed in this journey. I also share some of those videos as well. So you can find me on YouTube. All you have to do is just simply search Nikia 17. That's Nikia 17. And I know a lot of people oftentimes ask me, what does the term Nikia mean? Well, my mother at about the age of 25 shared with me that means blessed child, or child of God. So, that is a little bit about me and a little bit about my journey. Again, thank you for this time. I'm here. I'm blessed with the opportunity to be surrounded by some of the greats. So I really appreciate the journey. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Nick, I have a couple of questions. How has this approach to your life helped you in your writing?
So specifically, you mean which approach?
In your book.
Oh, the approach of the book. Yeah, so that leadership perspective has helped me to be able to build some of the most brilliant and greatest minds. I'm actually a global consultant. I work for a large corporation, and I actually train worldwide. As a matter of fact, I recently was training a class in Costa Rica as well. But it has allowed me to be able to see success in areas that I never thought I would be able to see in other people. Even as we support a lot of the different countries that are around the world, for example, India, and my people that are there, the Philippines, the different areas where there's a lot of extreme poverty. So kind of the journey that I went through. Through leading by example, I get the opportunity to be able to enable some great and brilliant minds. And I have seen their success, and at moments I've even shared tears with some of those people after some of those the heartfelt moments that we've shared together.
Okay. What took you to travel to all these countries that you talk about in your book?
So, my first trip that I took was to Mexico. So I went down to Mexico, and, I just enjoyed being able to see the culture. And instead of doing what, normal tourists would do on their trip, I had a couple of friends with me that inspired me to kind of branch out. And so we went into the local town, and we got the opportunity to be able to see how the people really lived in the town. And so that inspired me to be able to do the same as I travel. Now, I'll tell you, the vehicle in which I've been able to be blessed with the ability to travel is my job. So what I do for a profession, again, being a global consultant, there are times where I have to travel to these different countries and different places. And so that's blessed me with the opportunity to be able to travel, on the company's dime, to be honest with you. And then also that's led over into my personal life. So, I've ventured out and did some personal travel as well. And that has been the vehicle that's really funded the ability for me to be able to make those travels.
All right. Thank you, Nicholas.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity.
The next author will be Reverend Nathaniel Gaston. You can tell us about yourself, your books, where we can find your books, and you can read an excerpt from your book.
Can you hear me okay now, Queenie?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. All right. I'll start all over again. My name is Nathaniel Gaston. I want to thank Queenie so much for giving me this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all the men who are present today. I was born and raised here in Harrisburg. Went to college and all that good stuff. I've been working in the field of ministry for a long time. I'm currently a chaplain. I'm actually retired, but I decided to take up part-time chaplaincy work here at UPMC Pinnacle. And my wife and I have a company called Life Esteem Incorporated. We do an awful lot of training, a lot of counseling, a lot of life coaching and things such as this. I'm a trainer for the University of Pittsburgh's Child Welfare Resource Center. My wife and I both are. We've been trainers for over 25 years. And, we just do a lot of things. And so I've created what was called the Writer's Word Shop back in 1977. And we've been going strong ever since. So we're celebrating about 43 years of existence. And every week we have a weekly forum down at what's called the Midtown Scholar Bookstore here in Harrisburg, which is an excellent, huge bookstore owned by the current mayor of the city, him and his wife. And because of the pandemic and COVID, we've been forced, if you will, to go on Zoom. But thanks be to God, we were able to, discover Queenie. And she's just been a real blessing to to that gathering of ours. So I would like to invite all the men to come on a Friday night. Brother Neil Owens was on. I really appreciate his works, tremendous voice. And so we enjoy, having, poets, writers of all types come on and share their works. So we do that on Zoom, and we do it every Friday night from 7 to 9. We also do a lot of work in the schools. We have grants through the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. We've put on plays. In fact, the one book I want to introduce you to today is called The Visit. You can find it on Amazon. It is my first and only novel to this point, but I hope to write a few more if God will bless me with the time. And this novel was first a play, and the play was something that I put together and just was having some fun with it. And my brother comes along. He's an excellent playwright and director himself, and he actually directed the play for me, and it was a big hit. And so we want to get back to that. I decided to turn the play into a novel, and I'm glad I did, and it's been well received. And so anyhow, The Visit is a story that comes out of a lot of facets of my life. I was going into the 12th grade in my senior year, in fact, 1960. It's 1968. Yeah, I graduated in '69. So it was the summer of 1968. I'll never forget it. And this young lady walks up to me and she asked me my name. And I told her. And she said, well, what's your father's name? I said, my father's name is Nathaniel Gaston. I'm a junior. She said, well, do you know what my dad's name is? I said, no. She said, Nathaniel Gaston. I said, oh, that's a coincidence. We both had the fathers with the same name, huh? Okay. But anyhow, it turned out to be my sister. Here I was going into a 12th grade year, didn't know that I had 10 brothers and sisters by the last name of Curry that lived about maybe 6 blocks away from my house. I had never met them. I didn't know them. I'd seen her in school, but I never had a conversation with her. And it was just amazing that I went home and asked everybody, did they know? And everybody knew except me. You know, how does that happen, right? And so one of the backdrops to my story is a young lady who loses her children because of her lifestyle, drinking and drugging and all that kind of stuff. And she loses her kids to the system. And, you know, as her mother and father are, you know, trying to help her get the kids back and all of the, you know, anguish that goes on there, they discover some things about themselves, especially after this mysterious visitor comes. That's where the title comes from, The Visit. And it turns out that this visitor, who is from the agency, happens to remember them from when they were children, them being the mother and the father. And she starts, you know, unveiling some things, revealing some things that, like, they didn't know about each other. The father had kind of held on to some stuff that he had gone through and never shared that with the family. And the mother had some stuff that she had to talk about that had bothered her. So The Visit is about family dynamics. It's about love that's sometimes is not mentioned in many ways. It's about the secrets that we keep, the things we don't talk about, and how we can always discover stuff about ourselves, even though we've been, you know, family members for years. There's stuff we hold on to. And how we have to sometimes allow that stuff to come out, to deal with it, and then to learn to love all over again. I enjoyed writing the book, and you know, I've been encouraged to take some of the characters within the book and you know, expand on them and continue to tell the story. So that's what that's about. You can, like I said, you can find it on Amazon. It's my name's Nathaniel Gaston. The book is called The Visit, and I, you know, like I said, I enjoy it. In fact, we want to go back to the stage play, and I've been talking to some of the, you know, the original actors along with my brother as well. We're talking about doing the stage play again, and then maybe perhaps make it into a film. My brother's a filmmaker. He's done a number of small documentaries. In fact, he's in the process of doing a documentary on the Writers' Workshop itself and all the various people who have come this way, you know, and enjoyed the, you know, the microphone and just writing. And so we're all about publishing now. My oldest daughter, my wife and I have 6 children, 6 adult kids, and my oldest daughter now is my publisher. She has T-Dub Publications, and she is a fine writer. In fact, I told her she needs to hook up with Queenie because she has a number of books out, and now she's beginning to help others, me being one of those people that she's helping. And so we've had a lot of fun. The book that she helped me on, in fact, just recently, we just published it. It's called Our Words, Our Voices, and this is a collection of poetry from about 15 various poets, not just in Harrisburg. We actually have a poet, Dr. Kamika Williams Witherspoon, who I think is just one of the best poets I've ever met in my life. She's a professor at Temple University. She's one of the contributors here. And then we have some other folks who, you know, from other areas. But anyhow, this was a labor of love, and we love to put together works that features, you know, some of the poetry. I would like to read one of my poems today, if I could, Queenie, and then also I'll just read a really quick excerpt from The Visit as well. So that's kind of who I am and, you know, what I'm all about. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read a little piece here. I don't know why I'm not coming through on the computer, but I do have my phone here, so I hope you can hear me well. And I'm going to make this short and sweet, okay? And so this is sort of the prologue to the book itself, The Visit. And just let me set it up for you. Mama, they took my kids. Joyce yelled into the phone. I don't understand what you're saying to me, replied Joyce's mother. I don't understand what you're saying to me. They took your kids? Who took your kids? Her mom frantically said into the receiver, James? Joyce heard her mother call her father. Oh, Lord, she didn't really want to involve him. But involving her mother meant that her mother would involve her father. Joyce rested her forehead in her hand at the very thought. James, they took the kid. Her mother was yelling in the background. Joyce was concerned. She was mad. She was hurt. And she was still high. But she knew she had to do something about her kids. She could let them be caught in the system. She had heard the horror stories about what happens to children when they are in a government system. She didn't want that for her kids. She knew what people thought about her, that many people would thought she really just didn't care about her kids or what happened to them. But that wasn't true. She cared. She just didn't know how to give them something better. She gave them the basics. She fed them. She clothed them. She put a roof over their heads. But somehow they still ended up in the system. And she knew it was her fault that they were. I got to tell you something. I mentioned that parts of this book are little vignettes of myself. When I was in the 7th grade, I was sitting in class, and one of my mentors, who I still revere today, she's probably in her 80s. She looks good, still traveling back and forth to Africa, but she was a counselor at the time. And across the speaker here, I'm sitting in the 7th grade, comes that I had to report to the counselor's office. And I go down there, my brother's sitting there in the counselor's office, and he went to a different school. So I'm looking at him like, what are you doing here? And it turned out that we were being taken away from our mother on that day. And so my aunt, who was into, foster care and adoption, was sitting outside in the lobby, which I didn't know because I went in one way and she was sitting out in the lobby. And when the counselor said to us, he said, and your aunt is here to take you, and blah, blah, blah. And my aunt, we called her Aunt Jo. Aunt Jo was a beautiful person, but she was rough, man. She was rough. And the one thing I knew for sure, I did not want to live under the roof of Aunt Jo. No way, shape, or form. And I was a real quiet kind of guy, real kind of shy and everything. But I looked at my brother, he looked at me, and I spoke up. And I said, Dr. Johnson, can we live with our other aunt? And she said, who's your other aunt? I said, Aunt Dolores. And she said, well, why you want to live with Aunt Dolores? We said, well, we just do. She said, well, your Aunt Jo's sitting out in the lobby. We said, we don't want to live with Aunt Jo. And I remember that day to the day I die. But anyhow, back then we didn't have no cell phones. So when they made that call, it's very possible my aunt would have not been home. She could have been to work or whatever, but it, just so happened she was there. She picked up the phone and she said without hesitation, yeah, I'll take them. And she came up, and so my Aunt Jo was sitting out there in the lobby. And of course, she felt a certain way. And wait a minute, I'm up here to get these kids. Y'all called me, and now all of a sudden they don't want to come with me. Why don't they want to come with me? All that kind of stuff. So it became a big issue in the family. My mom was a serious alcoholic, but she was so beloved because she had a great sense of humor. She was self-destructive, but she was a loving person. And so while she was a really good person, and all that kind of stuff, the family rallied, took us away, and we never lived with her again. But she was always in our lives. And so a little bit of Joyce, the character in this play, this book, is about, who my mother was. My mother was a person who grew up in the church. My father I really didn't know him that well until I was about 42 years old. And I called him one day. I was working for the Department of Education as a state director. And I said to my one sister, I said, the one who had stopped me, in fact, I said, Mary, do you stay in touch with her dad? Yeah. So I called him. And we talked, and he said something to me. He said, I got to tell you, sir. He said, I don't know what you feel about your mother. He said, I know she's an alcoholic and all that. He said, but she's a beautiful soul. He said, I just want to leave you with this. He said, I took her out of the church. I was fast, jitterbug dude. He said, I took her out of the church, and I introduced her to the world of alcohol. He said, and the problem was I couldn't bring her back out. And she went way deep. He was an alcoholic himself by the time it was all said and done. But he wanted me to make sure I understood I was supposed to respect her, to love her, and to honor her. So God bless you, brothers. Thank you so much. And again, you can find my books on Amazon. One is called The Visit. The other one is called Our Words and Our Voices. Thank you very much, Queenie.
All right. Reverend Gaston, what inspired you to write The Visitor?
Well, it was a play, and at the time I was writing a series of short plays and different things and just having fun with it. And all of a sudden, I don't know, just that story, that whole notion of the kids being taken away and all of that. And then also just remembering how there was so much about my family I did not know. So many things that were unwrapped as I began to, interface more with my dad, meeting Mary and the Currys, and just different things as I grew older, different things. And I thought to myself, how did I not know this? And so I never forget I had an uncle who was just a strange kind of guy to me. He was always quiet. He was about 6'6". He just seemed to be, broke down all the time, never really doing much of anything. He did work, but it was just kind of, nonsensical kind of, just an interesting guy. So anyhow, one day I'm down I played basketball in high school and I thought I was hot stuff and all that. I'm going to play in college and all that stuff. And he came down and he was, standing there watching me. And I was the only one on the court, just kind of shooting around the Bose playground. And he came onto the court and he could play. This guy was a phenomenal basketball player. His name was Elmer Robinson. I said, what? He never played on the team in high school or anything like that. I'm all hot shot and everything. He comes up there out rebounding me, shooting all over top of me. I didn't know anything about my uncle. But that day I gained so much respect for him because we had a conversation. We really talked. And he really showed me that, son, you may know a little bit of something, but so do I. Don't think you all that now, okay? And I'll never forget that lesson learned and just looking at him in a very different light. You just don't know who people are, what their talents are. You got to get to know folks. And so that's kind of what the visit was all about.
Okay. And you already answered my second question about the writer's workshop. So thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Our next author is Maurice Gray. Good afternoon, Maurice. Can you tell us about yourself, your books, and you can read an excerpt and tell us where we can find you and your books. I think he's having technical difficulties. So we're going to go ahead and move on and come back to him. Elliot, how?
Hello.
Okay, tell us, how you doing?
Great, yourself?
Fine. Can you tell us about yourself, your books? You can read an excerpt from your book and tell us where we can find you and your books.
I would love to do that. And thank you very much, Queenie, for having me on your show. I really do appreciate it. And I've really enjoyed it. The men that have shared their works, guys, I applaud all of you. You all are a blessing. And and I tell anybody, it's really important to read. You get knowledge, you find different roles and walks and experiences that people are taking the time to write down. And then you can take that information and use that in your life to, maybe avoid pitfalls because you already had been forewarned or taught about certain things or know what advantages to take advantage of. Or it's also good to have that nice entertainment to sit down and relax instead of turning on the TV. Because let's face it, there's a lot of interesting things on TV nowadays. So that being said, I want to say that my name is Jerry Elliott Howard. I actually have two books. My first book is Rewritten Lives. It was my first release. And it is available on Amazon.com. It's got 22 reviews of 4.5 out of 5 stars. But my newest release came out this year, just before the pandemic, and it's called Take a Walk With Me. And it was the first commercial release under Hard Drive Publishing, owned by Henry Campbell out of St. Louis. But let me tell you about myself. I'm originally from a town called Findlay, Ohio, right? I grew up with a lot of family around me. My family actually crosses over from Native American to Black, and I've had a great rich experience growing up in that environment. And my mom and dad have been married for over 45 years, and they've had a great impact on my life, as well as their brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, and my cousins. I have a family that probably prides itself in sharing stories, telling lessons wrapped up in stories, and taking the time to actually just talk about life. There was always a point in time, every Sunday we called it at my grandma's, on my mom's side, we called ourselves the Sunday Gang. And so because even though we had, yes, the annual family reunion, Sundays were always like a family reunion in and of itself because everybody would pat themselves into grandma's house, spilling out the sides, and they would eat, talk, be merry, and everything that go along with that. But it wasn't just for Sundays. If there was an event going on, if the kids were if anyone's child was involved in an activity, it wouldn't just be one family member that would show up or just that nuclear unit. It was the extended family. So you came with a group. Like, who's that person's family? To turn around and it's the whole section in the stadium. Like, they all stood up, right? It was a sense of pride that you got, that you know that you're not alone. You were never alone. And then it extends into the family, not just the family, but the friends that we call friends, because I grew up learning how you just didn't throw that term friendship out there loosely. But if someone is a friend, they're a friend indeed, and they're kind of like family. And you know, that even that you could turn to them if need be, and they were a huge influence. And I really loved being around my elders. So that influenced how I wrote my poetry, because I am a poet. And like, for going into Rewritten Lives, what Rewritten Lives is about in terms of poetry, because my influence in terms of poetry writing is actually Geoffrey Chaucer, because I like the Canterbury Tales, how each poem could stand alone. You could read it and just enjoy it for that. But if you go from beginning to end, there's actually an implicit storyline that carries you all the way through to the end of the book. So with Rewritten Lives, it is the whole process of change that we go through in our life. We're always in the process of rewritten. How we are, I'm about to turn 44. Obviously, I'm not how I was when I was 4. I have a 3-year-old, and I have an older son who's taller than me finally this year, and I have a loving wife. But you get back to 4, and I'm 3 and 4. Obviously, none of them were there. So my life has evolved, changed, and been rewritten over and over again. And so you have to, and it's a whole thing of adaptation. So with Rewritten Lives, it generates that the poems is inspired through like what causes the change, what causes the change, what is the reason why you feel desire to change. And it's not a lecture book or lecture poetry in that regard. It's just, okay, an event took place and this inspired me to be this particular point. So you can tell by the chapters in it where there's a prologue, which is Days for Everdeen, and I will tell you what that was about. Then you got Saying Goodbye, letting go, the process of letting go to your old self. Life Sessions, what you learn about yourself as you're letting go, because that's a process. Seasons of Darkness, that inner fight between the old you and your new you, that's got to fight. Then you come out of the darkness because you don't fight within yourself forever. Then you rebuild your broken heart. You start finding those things that you're starting to learn to love again, and maybe something new. And then Chapter 6 is for love. What are those things that you're passionate about? It could be a new marriage. It could be the fact of a new life. Just anything that's new and what you love. And then finally, in the end, it's in conclusion, which the final poem is called A Means to an End. And I'll give you this part of it. And it goes, now the completion of testings, all that is to have been shared has gone round like show and tell. Growing, going on to a new life. Nothing is given for captivity in the hearts of men. The turns in life gives more views than a movie, but there is more than meets the eye. For as much as I'm here, time means everything. However, like the curves of the road, an opinion depends on the view. Sight beyond sight, looking above the surroundings, happenstance never exists. All situations are for a reason, and the connections are seen. Looking top down shows what appears harsh is not really mean. The testing of faith develops patience, and patience must have its perfect work. In order for maturation and completion in all things, there is no lack. There is a light which overcomes the darkness, which all things come together for those serving the Lord and are called by his purpose. What he places together, no one can pull asunder. No one, not one. After all, what he begins, he ends. So everything has a purpose. The whole change has a purpose. In the beginning, Days for Everdeen is the fact that as the book was being put together, my grandmother had been diagnosed with final stage cancer, and it caught everybody by surprise. In the 2 months, the book is getting submitted, leading up to the submission for publishing, she's gone. But leading up to, she was in another state. I was writing poems just to send to her, to comfort her, let know and about our lives together, and that I will not forget that these things meant to me, because some way I had to let her know that I loved her. She meant the world to me, and that I still always will hold on to what she has been, and she's in me to this day, obviously, because she's a part of my life. So that spills in to Take a Walk with Me, because I'm not a love poem poet, but the journey of a love relationship I can talk about. And the thing is that the whole genesis of the book, the whole reason behind the title, Take a Walk with Me, and ladies and gentlemen who are listening, there is one person, you're the person that's special, that they can walk up to you, say nothing else, and just say, take a walk with me. That's a different person. Everybody else might have to ask them 20 questions, but you know who that person is. They can just walk right on up to you. And if I'm about, especially if I'm talking about relationships, a man walks up to a woman and says, take a walk with me. If she gets up without asking the question, she trusts him in a different way than she trusts anybody else. Okay. And so thus begins the journey. And the poem that capitalizes it in the book is called Loving You Forever. There is always a price to pay, a consequence to be rendered, a reaction to action. This reasoning is based on tangible transactions. So what of love and relationship? After all, love is free and relationships are symbols of love, not transactions. They are for us to have. Yes, love is free and relationships with others are its symbols, but love changes things and for me gives the opportunity to make a purchase of forever because there is a cost for forever and it is paid in days and nights of love since it must always be present. To the lady I love, the lady of dreams, who is in the here and now, but beyond all things imagined or real, forever is what I want. I will pay it in days, nights, and minutes, and seconds. I will purchase forever to be with you.
Oh, wow.
But the way the book is designed is that it's a mixture of free verse, long, and then even haiku, stair-step in to propel you, to take you through to the end of the book. But again, you can read the poem, run one poem, and that's fine. But if you read the beginning and the end, it will propel you through the journey of a love relationship. Okay, so they both are. So, and Take a Walk with Me is the second book in the Rewritten Lives series. There's going to be another one that will be coming out later on in 2021 called Days of Revelation, and they all complement one another. Rewritten Lives and Take a Walk with Me are both available on Amazon.com. Rewritten Lives has a special site to itself right now because it was a self-publish at first, and I will let y'all know, Hard Drive Publishing has now got the rights to Rewritten Lives, and they will be reissuing the book under its umbrella, along with Take a Walk with Me, bringing them all underneath one book. But for right now, the book is available on Amazon.com as well as www.rewrittenlives.com, and Take a Walk with Me is explicitly available on Amazon.com right now. Plus, if you do want a signed copy of Take a Walk with Me or even Rewritten Lives, you can contact me. You can arrange a payment through PayPal, and of course it's j.elliotthehoward@yahoo.com. That's my link in PayPal, and I will send you the book with a signed copy to your name. And of course, you can always reach me on Elliot Howard on Facebook, Rewritten Lives on Facebook, and I'm also podcast host of a show called Millennial Money Management, and we're in our 6th season. And you can reach me in one of those, any of those, and I will talk to you, interact with you, and engage with you. I love how everybody has been trudging through this whole challenging 2020. It's been an eye-opening year. Everything's clear, but God bless you all.
Thank you. What got you interested in writing poetry?
It was a couple things. One, I love the way that you could tell a story in a poem. And if you remember the Iliad by Ulysses, that actually is a poem. And some of the in Bible, Psalms, those are poems, even though they tell a tale, they teach a lesson. And so the flexibility of poetry, I always loved, and I always was, intrigued with how different cultures do poetry in different ways, and I wanted to be a part of that. Other side of it was when I was the funny lighter-hearted one. My family came to Texas in 1993. I did have a crush on somebody down in the school that I was in, and we became friends and all. And I was trying to impress her, and so my dad, who's always been smooth, he's like the smoothest dad in the world. Yes, Jerry Howard, I did call you out on that. You've always been smooth. That's why you and my mom have been married for 46 years. So we had this big old anthology of poems. And so I tried my best. I found a sonnet by Shakespeare and I practiced it over and over and over again. And I tried to read it to her over the phone, try to pass it off like mine. And then she said, oh, nice recitation. She didn't let me off the hook. So I was like, you know what? I'll come up with my own. And the rest is history. I was 16. I just been writing since then.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Maurice Gray, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about yourself, your books, and you can read an excerpt and tell us where we can find you and your books.
My name is Maurice Gray. I was born and raised in Newcastle, Delaware. Okay, born and raised in Newcastle, Delaware. Can you hear me? Okay. Just trying to make sure I have my technical difficulties under control this time. Okay. Born and raised in Newcastle, Delaware. I've always been interested in storytelling. My mother was an excellent storyteller. She could take the most simple things and make them interesting. She would tell us everything about when she was in school at whatever age we happened to be. At the time she was telling a story, she told us about her experiences in college. She could take anything and just make it more interesting. That was her way of tricking us into being interested in higher education. She put a special focus. I didn't realize this when I was younger, but she put special focus on the stories of her education, how much she valued it, and the fun she had in college. For me and my sister, by the time she finished telling us these stories for years and years, it wasn't even an if we're going to college, it was when and where. She told her story so well, we both wanted to go to Howard University like she did, but neither one of us made it there for undergrad. We both wound up at the University of Delaware. My sister did make it to Howard. She went there for law school. So it was nice to know that a second generation of us did make it to Howard. I've always been interested in telling stories because of that. I've always been a big time reader. And I believe that those two, combined with the sense of humor I've managed to pick up over the years, are what really propelled me into being an author. Sometime after I graduated college, that was in 1990, I had this idea in my head that would not let me alone. I decided that I was going to write this short story just to get it out of my head. The idea I had was that, okay, there's this man, he dreamed about a woman he's never met before, and then he goes out somewhere and he sees her in person. I just took it all from there. I learned really quickly that as a writer, I don't do short very well. This short story went on over 300 pages. So over the years, I did some writing workshops. I learned how to streamline my story. I learned the value of good editing. I can't do it myself, even though I'm a good editor for other people, but I can't edit my own work because I already think it's perfect. I had to learn the hard way to farm it out to somebody else and just stick to editing other people's work. That's why every time I've tried to edit myself, little mistakes slip through because inevitably I think my own writing is perfect, so I'm not going to see these things. The first novel came out in 2000. It was called To Whom Much Is Given. I was raised in church, so writing Christian fiction was inevitable. But at the time I was writing, I did not know that Christian fiction was a genre. I didn't see any other books written in anything like that. And then when I did start seeing them, I didn't see any written by anybody who looked like me. Sometime around 1997, 1998, I'd been to a couple of writers' conferences. I'd met some publishers. I'd actually gotten them to ask for a couple chapters of my book. I was feeling pretty good about it, but I was still getting tons of rejection letters. What got me over the hump was an author named Patricia Haley. She released a book called Nobody's Perfect. I found this book in the library. I read it, and I was like, oh, this is a lot like what I'm writing. And she had her contact information in there. So I figured, let me reach out to this woman, find out who this publisher is that took her book, because maybe they'll take mine as well. And she introduced me to the concept of self-publishing. I didn't think that was really a thing. I thought you had to submit it to a publisher and keep doing that until somebody took it. I did not know I could do it myself. She took time out to show me how that worked, how she did it. And next thing you know, in October of 2000, I was able to self-publish To Whom Much Is Given. It's hard to believe that I think I blinked somewhere in there, because all of a sudden it's been 20 years since I released that first book. And since then, I've had a few more out. I did the sequel to Whom Much Is Given, All Things Work Together, 2006. I've had the opportunity to participate in several anthologies. Blessed Assurance in 2003 with several famous authors, including Victoria Christopher Murray, Patricia Haley. Again, she got me involved in that as well. Jacqueline Thomas, some of the heavyweights in Christian fiction, basically. We were all getting started around the same time, and it was great to be able to work with others who were writing in the same genre that I was and learn from them. They learned a little bit from me. I learned a lot from them. I think I got the better of that deal, hanging out with them. We did Blessed Assurance in 2003. I got involved with an all-male anthology called The Soul of a Man in 2009. We did another one like a few years ago, The Soul of a Man Part 2. There was another one called Home Again, Stories of Restored Relationships. I've enjoyed the anthology experience with different groups. I learned something from each other author that I've ever worked with. All those times I was doing the anthology, I still miss doing my own work. I've always got a story in my back pocket someplace. And the one I want to talk about today is called Like a Brother. That's a phrase I heard a lot when I was coming up, in a good way and in a bad way. It was a bad way, in my opinion, when I was trying to get a woman's attention and she, oh, you're like a brother to me. Okay, here we go again. Like, sorry, I've got one sister and I'm not taking resumes. She's doing her job. But I took that phrase, internalized, and like, what can I do with this in terms of writing a story? But this, Like a Brother, was born out of me trying to process that statement and figuring out all the different definitions for like a brother. Brother is about family. It's also about the definition that I just as alluded to here, about the romantic relationship where a woman tells you you're like a brother to her, which means you have no chance. By combining those elements, the main character in Like a Brother is Jeremiah, and he and 14 other people formed their own family because most of them didn't like the families they had or don't have any at all. All of them had one thing in common: they were mentored by the same couple. So over the years, they met each other, they formed their own family. They have this large extended family with Jeremiah as the oldest brother. As the oldest brother, he finds himself receiving a lot of phone calls, emails, texts, and such saying, oh, I'm in trouble. Can you help me with this? I need some money. I got a flat tire. He's the go-to guy. And he always goes to whenever they need him. And at the point where the story picks up, he's starting to wonder, when is enough enough? It's kind of like when you work in the church and you find yourself on every committee, trying to do everything at once until you get burned out. And you start wondering, well, how do I get myself this deep in and how do I get out of it? That's where Jeremiah is with his extended family. And the excerpt I'm going to read from it is one that, I made myself laugh with it. So I was hoping it would be good. And when other people have read it, they're like, yeah, they could really relate. In this particular scene, Jeremiah has agreed to watch children for a couple of his siblings. He agreed to overnight babysitting for 6 children. Yes, 6 children, all under the age of 8 and under. He agreed to that. But he got a little extra surprise in the scene that I'm about to read, courtesy of one of his younger adopted brothers. Joel is just that one. Everybody has that one relative. Is always going to be trifling, always going to be in some kind of trouble, always walking the edge, and always putting that on his siblings. This is the babysitting scene. 2 hours in the kid fest, and I was still in one piece. Frozen calmed the savage beast down like nobody's business, and it kept him calm just long enough to put on another movie. Wreck-It Ralph got him pretty zoned out. I might just survive this after all. I put the baby on my shoulder after his diaper change and walked the floor with him until he fell asleep. And as soon as I thought it was safe, the doorbell rang and woke him up. Now I had to juggle him so I could figure out who was messing up my flow. I opened the door just a crack. 2 tiny tornadoes in matching pink and green outfits pushed it all the way open and blew past me. Uncle Jay! 3 of my 5 senses engaged at the same time. I felt Carmen and Angie grip my legs with such force that they almost took me down. I heard an engine rev hard and saw the back of my brother Joel's car as he sped away from the curb at warp speed, the car I paid to get back from the repo man. Carmen held up her treasured locked stuff in his backpack. Daddy said because all the other kids are here, he'd let us come too and stay all night. I could only imagine the look on my face. It probably matched the look on the baby's face when Thing 1 and Thing 2 tried to snatch him out of my arms. I saved his life by shooing them into the den with the other kids, but nothing was going to save me now. Not when Queen Carmen I would no doubt start bossing her cousins around and Princess Angie would co-sign. It was about to be World War III up in here, and I had to call for reinforcements. I stood by the door and waited. When my sister Janice arrived, she took one look around and laughed in my face. Reinforcement is here, Jay. You can relax now. I couldn't blame her for laughing. I had the baby screaming in my ear, toddlers holding my legs so tight that my sweatpants were coming down. The boy on my left leg complained about Carmen turning off their movie to watch the Disney Channel, and the girl on my right leg was suddenly consumed with the fact that she didn't know where her mommy was. People all over Delaware probably heard the verbal equivalent of the Trojan War taking place in the family room between the terrorist twins and the kids who weren't currently attached to my legs. Denise hugged up the death grip kids and then took over Carmen and Angie. She said, since you look like you won't last another 2 minutes, I'm going to pull the plug on this madness. Keep doing whatever you were doing with the original 6. I'll take the demonettes. On paper, she just signed on for an unfair division of labor in her favor. The reality was I got the easier end of it. Joel's girls were the equal of any 10 children alive. Fortunately for me, those girls adored Denise. Their own mother couldn't get those little heathens to behave as easily as she could. She walked into the den, and all I heard was, Auntie Niece. The ensuing silence was sudden and downright deafening. Just like that, the verbal chaos ended. 2 seconds later, Janice came out with a little terrorist holding each hand, and the other 2 kids following her. I put the movie back on for the kids who wanted to finish it. These 2 are with me. If the others want to join me, they can. Okay, carry on. The Carmen and Angie followed Janice without a word. The other kids ran back to watch the resumed movie. I never thought this house would know peace again. Right on cue, the baby ended his voluntary insomnia and passed out on my shoulder. If I lived to be 100, I'd never understand how Janice's mere presence could do that. And Joel wouldn't live to see his next birthday by the time I got through with it. That was the babysitting scene. That's just kind of an idea of the family dynamics that Jeremiah has to put up with. Find my books. I'm on Amazon.com under my name, Maurice M. Gray Jr., which is also where you find me on Facebook. I'm also getting my website back together, www.writethevision.biz. The thing that I've published through is called Write the Vision. So I do all my writing and my editing through there. So I'm pretty easy to find. So, and I thank you for this time, and thank you for putting up with my technical difficulty.
All right, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about CBLR?
Yes, CBLR is the Christian Book Lovers Retreat. I'm going to be a part of that. It's next month. I believe it's October the 22nd to the 24th. And I found out something working with them. I am officially an old head because I've been around since the beginning of when Black Christian fiction was becoming a thing. They put me on a panel with others, my contemporaries from that time, so we can talk about what it was like when we first got started, so that those who are just coming into it can benefit from everything that we've learned over the years. So yes, I'm officially an old head. I'm on the old head panel, so I can help out those who are coming up behind us. I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
All right. Thank you so much. Next, we have Marcus Jones. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your books, where we can find you and your books? Can't hear you, Marcus. Can't hear you. No. No, I'm gonna come back to you. All right. Okay, next we have Tony Lindsey. Tony, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your books and where we can find you and your books?
Sure. I'm on Amazon. You can just put in my name, Tony Lindsey, on Amazon, and you know, you'll see my books. I've been writing all my life. Like Maurice, I was first published in 2000. The book was One Dead Preacher, and it's had a variety of lives. I had to re-release it myself for the 20th anniversary edition. I couldn't convince any publisher to do it, so I actually self-published my first book. That was a lot of work. I don't think I'll do it again. It was way more work than I was ready for. Yeah, the book has been published. It was published by Black Words, Urban Books, Black Expressions Book Club. So it was, you know, it's been out for a minute. So I guess no one considered it to be marketable. I did it again, and I've sold a couple, so I'm pretty happy with it. I have written, probably 8 novels, 3 murder mysteries, One Dead Preacher, One Dead Lawyer, One Dead Doctor. I've written different genres, what's called urban romance. I wrote Urban Affair. I wrote a thriller called Street Possessions. I've written a family trilogy or family saga book called Mama's Girl, and that's under the pen name Daybreak Jones. That's currently out now. More Boy Than Girl, which is street lit. Chasing It, which is also street lit. I got about 4 short story collections. Pieces of the Whole, which is published by Third World Press. Acorns in the Skillet, published by Legacy Press. Fat from Papa's Head, published by Penknife Press, and Almost Grown, published by Butterfly Press. I'm an editor. I do editing, and that has been a humbling experience. I got an editing certificate from the University of Chicago to improve my own writing, and it turned into me doing editing for people, which is cool. I do it. I didn't think it was going to be another business, but it has developed into that. I went to Chicago State. I got an MFA, and I got a MA from Arizona State. I'm consider myself a serious writer. I had the pleasure of meeting Gwendolyn Brooks as a young Chicagoan, young kid in school, and she told us all we could write, and I believed her, you know. So I'm sure she was just being probably friendly to everybody, but I took it to heart and believed her. I always knew that I could rely on writing as a source of income. I don't know why. I think it was, I met this guy when I was probably maybe 12, and he was selling short stories, and he was serious about it. And I was like, wow, I could do that. And I sold my first short story. I got 2 G's. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And so I guess when I went to school, I didn't major in English. I majored in psychology. And so I worked in mental health for a while, but I always knew, because I was still writing even then. I don't know, I just didn't have the confidence as an undergraduate. But I kept writing. In 2000, I went to a, maybe 1999, we had a Black Writers Conference at Chicago State, and I went, and I met Kwame Alexander. And he told me, he said, hey man, I heard you got a book out that people are talking about. And so what happened was, I had a manuscript that people were talking about. What happened was I had wrote this manuscript, One Dead Preacher, and I sent it to everybody. I went and I picked up a book, and if I saw somebody's agent's name in that book, I sent them a copy of that manuscript. So I had created a buzz about it, unbeknownst to me. And so we said, I heard about the book, because I had came to to the event with another book, Chasing It, that I had written. And I was going to try to, you know, sell that to somebody. And he said, I heard about this other one Day Preacher. So I sent it to him and he published it. And that's the story. That's how I got started. Then I've been with Urban, I've been with different publishers since then. I've self-published this one. And that's pretty much me. If I read out of, I'll read out of this one, the Day Preacher. I just read the first couple of pages. Summer 1998. I often want to be the man my ex-wife and my mother want me to be. A solid guy, a good Christian brother who comes straight home on payday. A man who doesn't know what a floating crap game is. A man who doesn't know who has the good weed or which chick gives the best head. Just a regular Joe, like my old man. My dad had no use for the streets or the people in them. Solid as a rock. I bet my right arm that he never cheated on my mother. The man got up at 3:45 a.m. Monday through Friday for 30 years. 30 years. I'd pass him in the mornings, me coming in, him going out. He'd ask me, ain't you tired of them streets yet, boy? I would tell him no. But if he would have asked me that question now, some 20 years later, my answer would be yes, without a doubt. In the past, the streets had always been my refuge, my place to go when I needed life to make sense. I know what to expect from street life. It was the normal life that kept me banging my head against the wall. If I was more like my old man, I wouldn't be lying here breathing oxygen through a mask with 22 bullet caliber holes in my chest, my neck, and I hope to God in my thigh and not my Jones. My net is bandaged so I can't look down, but she was aiming at my Jones. I think I put my thigh away, but I ain't really sure. I ain't prayed in 4 years. When I woke up in this hospital room, I asked God to let it be my thigh and not my Jones. Everything hurts, so I can't really tell. When I piss, I don't know where it's going or where it's coming from. The nurse put the television on this Christian station. I guess she heard me calling Jesus and figured I was a Christian. I called him. I didn't know who else to call. It's funny how you fall back on what you were raised on when your ass is out. She wanted to kill me. Probably thought she did. As soon as the cops come, I'm turning her ass in. I never told the police on anyone in my life, but she tried to shoot me and she tried to shoot my Jones off. And maybe she did. God, I hope it's there. The last time I was in the hospital, I had self-administered painkillers. This time I heard the doctor tell the nurse no painkillers because of my heart. I hope she didn't shoot me in the heart. I'm not that wealthy and hearts cost money. That would be some shit if she shot me in the heart and my Jones. I'm sort of glad I feel the pain because I once heard paralyzed people don't feel pain. I can't move anything, but everything hurts. The last thing I remember was her standing over me and aiming at my Jones. So that's from Preacher. Okay, that's me. That's my story. You're muted, Queenie.
Where did you come up with the title Fat from Papa's Head?
Okay. Fat from Papa's Head is a collection of short stories. I don't know if I told you on my short story collections. Fat from Papa's Head, Pieces of the Whole, Acorns in the Skillet, and Almost Grown. The title, Fat from Papa's Head, it was an expression that people used to say, boy, you need some fat on your head. You need some knowledge. You need some, and so Fat from Papa's Head is knowledge from a grandfather or an older person in your life. Fat from Papa's Head.
All right. Thank you so much. Marcus, you ready?
Can you hear me, Miss Queenie?
Yes. Thank you.
All right.
Tell us a little about yourself, your books, and where we can find you and your books.
Okay. My name is Marcus Jones. I'm I want to say a fresh author. I started writing. I think I tried to write in the 9th grade, but my attention span was too short at the time. I was a 9th grader in school, fresh in high school. My attention span wasn't ready for it, so my book didn't go anywhere. So I think I wrote like 3 pages, and I left that alone. Like I said, I'm from Augusta, Georgia, a little smaller city in Georgia. Basically, my stories come from my imagination that I have. I grew up as I want to say a latchkey kid. My mom worked hard, you know what I'm saying? I used to come home from school, go straight to the TV, and I used to engulf myself the stories and the storyline of a movie. And ever since then, I just always loved to break down stories and tell stories. And I started in 2004 my first novel, which is The Seventh Man, which y'all can see I got behind me. Seventh Man, part 1 and 2. This story is about 6 coming-of-age teenagers. It's a horror. My genre is horror. I love horror, but I also give life, the things that we all deal with in life, poverty, broken homes, domestic violence, drugs, stuff like that in our community. And I wanted to create a story that wasn't cliche, because I'm getting tired of seeing the same old thing, pimps, stories about pimps and drug dealers and all this. I wanted to do something different, and horror is something that I like. So I took everything that I grew up around and came up with a story. And it's about 6 coming-of-age teenagers. They need money. One of their moms is strung out. One coming from a home where the mother's working 2 jobs, single mother trying to raise a son. One kid is a very great athlete, but he's not good in the academics. So basically, they need money. And what they do is they find somebody that teaches them about witchcraft. And what they do is they conjure up this demon that they can control in their sleep to rob local drug dealers. But when they wake up and everything is good, they got the money and everything is there. But little do they know that every time they use this creature, is gaining its power to step out of their dreams, and it just wreak havoc on the city. And you got these teenage boys fresh from the hood, fresh out of high school, that don't know nothing about nothing in the world, trying to stop a demon. So, and within I did that, I put everything that I grew up around, that I seen into this story. I developed all my characters from friends that I grew up with. And yeah, that's The Seventh Man. As y'all can see, part 1 and 2. I broke it into 2 parts because it would have been a very thick book. It would have been like 600 pages. So I wanted to break it down in 2 parts. That's my first book. Like I said, I started writing in 2004. Now, when I was writing, I moved on to the book that I just published this year, which is Baby Girl Innocence. I get into that one in a minute. But as I was writing Baby Girl Innocence and pushing The Seventh Man, I hit something that I never expected. When I was promoting the book, I was getting, and I hate to say this, from our community, the Black community, the superstitions that we have about horror. I would get negative views, being that my book is about a demon. It scared a lot of people, and I got frowned upon, and it kind of set me back for a little bit, because the whole purpose of me writing that story was to show that us as Black authors can do more than just the cliche. You know, we got Stephen King, we got John Carpenter telling these great horror stories, but where's our Black horror? Until Jordan Peele recently emerged, Black horror was kind of a taboo. So I wanted to wrestle with that, with Black horror, and I think I did a pretty good job with it, because I put everything that we in our culture are going through, but just with a little extra twist to it. And being that I was getting these frowns, and every time I try to present my book to so-called church-going folks, they were like, "Oh, get that book away from me! Oh, it's demonic, it's evil." It's a fictional story, and it got me frustrated to the point where I didn't even want to write. But then I sat down, I thought about it. I said, I'm not gonna let that mess me up. So what I did was I dived into my brain and pulled out a couple of short stories that is not horror, which is where I came up with Southern Tales. Southern Tales is a collection of short stories, from thriller to conspiracy theory to drama and a little erotica. So that made me change my direction from just being a horror writer to being just a diverse writer. So Southern Tales is my attempt to dab into different genres and show that I can write other than just horror. But to be honest with you, horror is my baby. So I came right back to it with Baby Girl Innocence. Baby Girl Innocence, I just dropped this July 2020. It's a story about a lady she's starting new beginnings in life. She's starting a new career as a physician assistant. She got a new love in her life. And unfortunately, she is possessed by her father's evil spirit that sits dormant in her until something traumatic happens in her life, and it comes out and it manipulates her to becoming one of the most notorious serial killers. And it fools her into believing that she's doing the right thing because she's killing off sex offenders. So in her mind, she thinks she's doing the right thing by knocking off these sex offenders. But this demon inside of her is taking over her. It's trying to possess her completely. And she also is in love with the lead detective on the case. And this is an erotic horror, because I like to play with erotica a lot. My horror, and I mixed it together, wrapped it up pretty good, and I got me an erotic horror. So those are my collections: Southern Tales, Baby Girl Innocence, The Seventh Man. You can find me on Facebook, of course, Marcus T. Jones. My Facebook page is Mind of Marcus. You can hit me up if anybody want a copy. I got discounts going. You get one, get another half price. On Mind of Marcus on Facebook, like I said, I'm still working on the website. But that's me in a nutshell. I'm a diverse writer, but my basis is horror, and I want to give something new, something different to Black literature. I hate to say Black literature, put it in a box, but basically that's what I was writing for, something different out of our culture, because they got that horror sold up, but we can do it too. And so that's why I put a lot into that.
What do your characters have in common? What do all your characters have in common?
Okay, they all going through a struggle, basically. All my characters have a struggle, a story to tell themselves. The reason why they doing the things that they do. Like I said, in The Seventh Man, my 6 characters, they go through the same things that probably all of us have gone through. Single parents, domestic violence, seeing your mother get beat down by some food, or vice versa. A mother strung out on drugs. I done seen all of that. And they all going through a struggle in The Seventh Man. And Baby Girl, her struggle is the fact that she has this secret that she's dealing with, and she realized that her mom knew it the whole time. So that's that secret of family lies. Dealing with lies and secrets from your family member that you wouldn't expect would lie to you. So she deal with a struggle in that. And not only that, she's trying to take care of her. She's more like she has a set of friends, and she kind of like keeps them together. So she try to keep that together as well as not losing her mind at the same time.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus.
You're welcome, Ms. Queenie. Thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity.
You're welcome. Okay, Raymond Miller, you're next. Can you tell us about yourself and your
thank you.
And where we can find you in your books?
Tell me about myself, my book, where I can find the books. Okay, I'm right on it. But first, I want to say it's an honor to be here. I thank you for allowing me to participate. And we got some talent on this broadcast. Gentlemen, I am so impressed and so happy to see us getting out there and getting this thing done. I've been taking notes on some of these stories and where to get some of the stuff. So yeah, we'll all be in touch after this. So anyway, again, thank you for having me, Queenie. About me, I grew up in just my thing, my fancy ass background. I grew up in Arkansas. I went to school there. Also, I have an MA from the University of Oklahoma in literature, and another one from the University of San Francisco. Moved into the Bay Area to go to school. Been here about 20 years. By day, San Francisco Bay Area it is. By day, I work as a content strategist. So if you've ever gotten an email after you've ordered something online or used an app, then you know, that's the kind of writing that I do. So I've got a career that I've earned. It seemed like we all started out pretty humble, and I can say I started off humble. And every day I go into work, I am very thankful for getting here because, you know, I started out blue collar and and here I am. Now, as far as writing is concerned, I've been writing my whole life, started taking seriously recently. So I worked on a novel back when I was in school, kind of put it away, worked on a career, getting back into it now. So mostly I'm just trying to hone my craft through self-publishing. And I ghostwritten about a dozen novels, put those out for different people. And I'm like, it's time for me to do for myself. So one of the things I also did to kind of practice and get it going is I worked on my mother's cookbook. So I approached her and said, hey, Mom, we can do a cookbook. She's like, I don't know. No, Mom, we can do this. And in fact, let me show everybody. I don't know if you can see that. Mama's home cooking. by Wilma Miller. And we got that thing out. It's on Amazon, and we got it rolling. So she'll be a part of Queenie's interviews tomorrow when the ladies show up, and she can tell you more about that. But as far as self-publishing, I do it all. I did the writing, the editing. I work on my own covers, on marketing. Still, trying to get that axe on it sharp. Now, as far as my writing concerned, I write crime fiction. I've done some science fiction, but most of them I'm focused on crime at this time. I have a few stories up on Amazon. Kentucky, the titles are Kentucky, Consider Lily, and Kentucky is more about money and what you don't have. Consider Lily is a murder and a mental illness, and we never look at each other when we got down. A story of some friends who grew up together, and as they age, they're put in a moral dilemma of whether they should take some money or not. And as my grandfather used to say, not all money's good money. So those stories together, I'll be putting those in a larger book of short stories that'll be available. I hope to get it today, but life is life. In about 3 more weeks, I can have that self-published and ready to go. You can find my books on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website, RaymondMiller.com. I was lucky enough to grab that domain name and sign up for my newsletter. And I'll just keep you informed of everything that comes out. Now, as far as my writing's concerned, I too, because I want to thank Mr. Jones for pointing this out. I didn't want to do anything stereotypical. We have a lot of stuff out there, prostitutes, pimps, drug dealers, and things like that. And, and anybody who writes that, good for you. A lot of these stories are very dynamic and prolific, and, they're enjoyable reads. But I would say a significant percentage of us, we don't know anything about crack or crank or H. Most of us don't even know what drugs look like. But so there's I'm trying to thread the needle and find that area of crime that's where most of us fall in. I like to read stories about a person like me, I like to consider myself pretty intelligent, educated. I get out there, you're put in a situation to where, man, life would be so much easier if I'll just take this and it'll be fine. And it's not fine. But that's something I can relate to. I can't relate to getting mad over, $10 drug dealing, but I don't know nothing about that. but I do know the temptation of taking something that don't belong to you and having to put up with some consequences. Sometime it work out, sometime it don't. That's the stuff I like to read, and that's what I like to put out for my viewers and fans. Yeah. So yeah, there we go.
All right. Being that you have traveled over 25 countries, how has your writing been influenced?
Oh man, ooh, my writing's been influenced in 2 ways. Number one, being able to connect with different people from around the world, I can see what's universal. Everybody worried about bills. Everybody worried about the kids. Everybody worried about making a better life. It's just universal. Now, sometimes that worry, you in a country where your health care is paid for. You get sick, you go to the doctor the next day, you got problems, but you're not worried about the money of those problems. That's different than here in the States, where unless you got $400 to even see the doctor, and that don't pay for any treatment, it's just to get in the door because you don't have insurance. That's a different story. So talking to people in other countries, I can see where we have different pressures, but everybody really concerned about the same thing. And then the second way allows me to connect with people through, say, food. I didn't realize that, well, I did realize it, but it didn't hit home until I'm in different countries, and I'll talk to people and I say, well, what's the thing that you grew up on that man, if I'm sick, I'm tired, I want some comfort, what is it that you eat? And everybody got a different answer to that question, and every answer is right. And so when you read my stories, you'll see how much I'll lean towards food that we have and we understand, that people can appreciate and get to know us through that. Because I get to know people in Korea through the food, through Japan, through the food. I can lay down on some sushi and then understand the culture more, and appreciate the culture. So it's the kind of the same thing. One of the things that I've learned, and it's kind of disappointing, there are people who just I grew up on X. This is what I'm gonna eat. I'm not trying anything else. And when I find out, I hate to say that I judge folks. That's not accurate and it's not very nice. But if you're not even gonna try anyone else's food, that does tell the world something about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if
yeah,
I want to,
yes.
yeah, thank you, Marcus.
Yeah.
So if you want to show something about a character, you know, that's how it helps. I want to show something about character. I got a character, man. I hate a raw steak, not raw, a rare steak. I ate it such and such way. That tells you one thing. I only eat my steak well done. I don't care what anybody say. That tell you something else. So it all helps in getting across who this character is, what they will and won't do, and building, you know, toward a surprise that if you paid attention, you'd see it coming. And that is where the best stories come from.
All right. Thank you so much, Raymond.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And again, everybody, my name's Raymond Miller, raymondmiller.com. Sign up for my newsletter. I'll give you all the news. My mother's name is Wilma J. Miller, wilmajeanmiller.com. You can buy her cookbook there. Thank you very much, Queenie.
You're welcome. Okay, next is Neil Owens. Tell us about yourself, your books, and where we can find you and your books at.
Thank you. How you doing, Queenie? And I want to give a shout out to all the Black authors. Outstanding work, and it's good to be a part of that, part of this group. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and I wrote my first story in the 5th grade, but I didn't consider writing a profession. I moved on in life, of course, but after 33 years working with at-risk youth, I decided to follow my passion. But it got jump-started when I met Barack Obama in 2010. And shortly after I met him, a story came into my mind. And I said, I need to write this story, but I was procrastinating on it. I really wasn't. I mean, I'm a director and I'm involved in a lot of things. I wasn't really interested. So maybe when I retire, I'll write a story. But it kept pushing me, and then eventually I just said I had to go for it. So in 2014, I resigned and as director of operations for a nonprofit organization that's nationally affiliated. And I decided to pursue my passion for writing stories. And I wrote my, so I had to think about what I wanted to do. My dream initially was to go through the traditional publishing route. That was my focus. As I wrote, I discovered I had the art of storytelling, but I had to learn the technical aspects of creative writing. So I took online novel courses. I joined some writing communities where there was a lot of harsh criticism and constructive criticism, but it was very important, made me a better writer. And I decided to, I spoke to an agent and he told me I wouldn't have editing rights. I wouldn't have control over my book once the contract was signed. I said, no, that's not happening. No, I can't do that. I mean, I don't know what they was going to do, but I didn't want to lose control of my work. So I decided to self-publish. And I created my own publishing name and company, and I self-published my debut novel last year, August of 2019, Mirrors of Life. And it is, amazingly, it has won 3 literary awards. I won the bronze medal from Reader's Favorite and the Silver Book Award from Literary Titan. And then I was the award-winning finalist for the 2020 International Book Awards. So it's been a journey going forward. This book, Mirrors of Life, is about it vividly explores contemporary experiences of Black people in America through the emotional tale of a mother and her children. It's a tale of faith and perseverance that leads to intrigue when her ambitious and spiritually inclined son, Derek, attempts to build a civic-minded conglomerate that undercuts the retail and gas prices in America. From behind the scenes, there's a gentleman, his name is Eric Hornsby. He's the antagonist. And he's a person who sits above the president of the United States. he has a lot of power. And he's the chairman of the business powers. And he, from behind the scenes, leads the opposition to prevent Derrick from creating Black Wall Streets across America. So that's where book 1 ends. And I just released the new book, the sequel, Mirrors of Life Part 2, The Fight for Political Power, just released last week. And it's set in today's political climate. And Derrick learns that he needs political power to be able to sustain his conglomerate. So he finances a grassroots nationwide voting initiative to change the leadership in Congress. And that's where he runs into the challenge with Mr. Hornsby. And this is where he's the person who's, again, fighting to return. He's a neo-Nazi. And he wants to turn America into the Fourth Reich. So he is a dictator. So I'll read a little bit from chapter 2 of Mirrors of Life, part 2, The Fight for Political Power. Hornsby leaned forward with his small, pale hands clasped on the wood table. His orange stone face had his customary frown. We need to take our country back to the days when niggas feared us. Amen came from the mouths of a few before Samuel Hindenburg said, it's time to make our country great again. Hornsby led the chorus of claps before he said, we have to do everything within our power to win this election. That includes accepting help from our foreign and domestic enemies. Donaldson has energized the George Wallace Democrats who haven't voted in 40 years, Merce said. They will help us win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. When we must, or civil war will be our only option, Hornsby said. And we cannot win the Civil War without control of the Pentagon. Jack Gentz authors replacement acts. When we win the election, how long do we have to wait before the new order? Hornsby shifted his reddish eyes. To update you, Mr. Getz, when we regain control of the White House, we will assassinate Minister Kabir. His murder will lead to nationwide riots like when the fathers killed Dr. King. That will be our excuse to implement martial law. During that time, there will be an explosion at Camp David that will kill the president, vice president, and the Speaker of the House. As Secretary of State, I will be sworn in as president. In my address to the nation, I would accuse radical Islam as the perpetrators and arrest and detain all Muslims in this country. With the Secretary of Defense and ally, we will disband Congress, outlaw freedom of the press, burn the Constitution, remove all non-white immigrants, and slaughter every Jew and nigger. America will take its rightful place in the world as the Fourth Reich, with Russia replacing Italy and China the new Japan. The members stood and applauded. After 8 seconds of gloating, Hornsby gestured for them to sit. They faced him and extended their right arm in the air with a straightened hand. Hail Hornsby came from their mouths before they sat. He nodded his approval. The independent media is our biggest threat. They are the enemy of the people. Our plan will take 3 years to implement. We have to keep the eyes of the media on the left hand while we are using the right. So we have to keep our hands off of Derrick Williams until after the election. Bart Henson, the owner of the largest company in America, said, the owner of the largest energy company in America said, Williams is getting married next week. Hornsby grinned. Activate Boston. Let's see what comes of that. It'll be harder for the pastors to continue supporting an adulterer. Let them think that he has won the war. I want them relaxed for the kill. Hornsby pointed his crated chin upward. Political power is our strength. If we lose it, we will lose our country. We must win this election. If we don't, the new Americans will come from shithole countries. That's an excerpt from Mirrors of Life, Part 2, The Fight for Political Power. It is a political thriller that is insightful and very chilling. And one of the things I say, when the actions of fictional characters become real life, the imagination is made real and fiction becomes nonfiction.
Where can we find you and your books?
My books are available wherever books are sold online. You can also visit my website at www.owenspublishing.com and receive a personalized autographed copy there. You can make the purchase there. But wherever books are sold, that's where online, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever, you can find them there.
What is your genre and what attracted you to that genre?
The genre is contemporary. Actually, the first book is new adult contemporary. It is I really like to call my genre contemporary, Christian contemporary, because my books are God-centered, but they are very adult. So it's not like reading your grandmother's, Christian book. It addresses a lot of different things, and it has a lot of things there. I mean, it's a realistic tale, so it deals with how people will actually say something and actually do. It's like the book is like, and this is what reviewers tell me, especially with part 2. They say it's like reading a movie. It makes you feel like you're watching a movie.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have Kenneth Powers. Can you tell us a little about yourself, your books, and where we can find you?
Okay, along with being an author, I am a teacher, a freelance writer. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I lived there my whole life. I began writing in my early teens. I started writing for my high school newspaper, and I majored in journalism in college. This is my first book. It's called In Its Own Words. It is a youth fiction. It's for teens, to teens. It's published by Destined for Greatness Publishing, located in California. The publisher is Denard Williams, and I published it in 2018. The focus of my book is about an adopted teenage boy named Stephen, and he has a speech impediment. It makes him a target for bullying. And he responds by fighting back physically. He becomes violent. Some of the themes in the book are children being raised in Christian homes, foster care issues, and the importance of education for youth. It's truly meant as a conversation starter for parents who have children who are being bullied. I used it about 2 months ago at a church ministry, and it created an open dialogue for parents to talk to their kids about being bullied, types of bullying, and things they were going through. And things went very well with that. It went very well. People got involved, people were engaged, and I really had a good time with that. So I have experience as a foster parent, as far as the book in its own words. I have seen, and also as a teacher, I've seen bullying happen among youth, how it impacts youth. Hope the book inspires youth to find better ways, like inner city youth, to find better ways to deal with conflict other than violence. And I'm going to read an excerpt from my book in chapter 9. And it's about how Stephen sneaks out the house to go to a party. Okay, so Stephen, the main character, sneaks out of his home to go to a party. While everybody seemed to be having fun, I still felt weird. I think it was because I'd never been to a party before. My parents were serious Christians. They didn't drink, smoke, or do anything that most people consider normal for adults. As I walked outside to get some air with cigarette smoke, I noticed a couple boys and girls giggling and smoking. This cigarette smoke smelled different from the smoke inside. It was strong and stunk real bad. I think it was weed. Now I knew it was time to get out of there. My thoughts were racing. I began to think about getting into trouble. What if the police came? What if mom found out that I was arrested? What if? What if? What if? Back inside the house, I looked for Dee, but instead I ran into Lisa. She didn't look drunk or high, but she did look like she was having a good time. I guess there is a benefit to being there after all, even though the party was too wild for me. So that's an excerpt of the book. So my influences, people who've influenced me over the years. I want to start out by saying a shout out to my pastor, Bishop Will Thornton from King of Kings International in Taylor, Michigan. He inspired me to stop procrastinating and go after my vision. I've had a vision for a long time, writing a book, but I never really actually sat down and really put my pen and paper and started working on it. But once I go into the church, he inspired me to begin to write. Also, my wife, Lindsey Powers, she's been an inspiration to me. She inspires me to believe in myself when I don't. My parents, Kenneth and Veronica Powers, they taught me the value of hard work and also the value of education. To my sister, Bernice Boateng, she is a corporate manager in corporate America. And also today is her birthday, so happy birthday, Bernice. My brother, Keith Powers, he is the owner of his own construction company. My brother, Kevin Powers, he's an engineer for Chrysler. So if you want to get a copy of the book, it costs $13. You can send me an email at Kenneth Lavelle, that's Kenneth, Lavelle, Lavell, at hotmail.com. And you can send me an email and we can arrange a payment option through PayPal, through Cash App. You're on mute, Queenie. Can't hear you.
How do you believe your book will benefit foster parents?
I think it would help foster parents just see things from the child's viewpoint. As a foster parent, I've been a foster parent for 6 years. I'm not a foster parent right now, but it is a struggle seeing things from their viewpoint. You know, this book goes into how one of the boy's friends, the main character's friends, is in foster care, and he has issues as far as getting in trouble. So hopefully it'll cause a dialogue, have a dialogue between the kids and the parents. I believe that's missing in today's society. Seeing what kids are going through and helping them.
Yes. All right, thank you so much, Kenneth.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Oscar Sanders. Oscar, tell us about yourself, your books, where we can find you and your books. You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Oscar Sanders, author, playwright, screenwriter, social justice, spoken word performer. My niche is to perform basically most of my poetry in 10 different characters. I started out, my mother and father were very politically active. So they used to take me to all kinds of rallies and Savior's Day when Farrakhan would come to Madison Square Garden. So I was brought up on politics and social justice and being aware, and started eventually. I was a lonely child, so I used to make movies. I started out Super 8 camera making movies, and that escalated into years later into high quality and high definition and making short films and music videos, and eventually 2 jazz documentaries, one about jazz violinist by the name of Billy Bang, and then another by a master drummer, Michael Carvin. And the Michael Carvin basically takes you on a new band, rehearsing them for their first quartet album. And the Billy Bang documentary basically talks about Billy's influence in the progressive jazz movement in the loft jazz period in New York, starting in the 80s. A lot of free jazz was coming of age. And then from then I started with poetry and screenwriting. I was writing screenplays for my films, but now I'm doing them to sell to other people, and plays for performance for myself. And I teach them in school too. I do in middle schools. I go through a competitive competition that basically teaches the kids about social justice, stuff like that as well. And my first book was Final Hearing, which was basically a New York City Hall murder mystery about a Jewish city council member and his white shoe law firm wife. They're very popular in New York City, and mysteriously they get killed 6 months apart. Brother winds up being an administrative assistant to him, winds up falling into the job back actually through special circumstance of the election laws, because when the wife ran to take that position, the city council position after he died, she won, and so the brother lost. She was on a trip in the Cayman Islands, and she was found dead. And so that kind of like, because of the law and because of the constituents not having an active member in politics, the runner-up was kind of like given the job. So the brother fell into the job. And at that point, he realized that, you know, people might always say that, you know, you're an outsider, you know, going into politics until you get in. And then when you get in, you're an insider, you know. And you suddenly learn that over time that you really don't run anything. I've always believed that as well, that I always thought politics was built. I mean, I'm sorry, history was built, you know what I'm saying? It's mostly planned and executed that way. That's why certain things fall into place like that, so that other people can have the response that they want, usually to oppress you or somebody, you know. And from that, just this past February, I released Exposing Politics, a collection of poetry, social justice, spoken word. A lot of this stuff is what I also perform in different characters. So it's basically current events. I say similar to Law and Order. All the contents are ripped from the headlines, everything from the Flint water crisis to pay-for-play scandals between politicians and the state, the Flint water crisis, the fact that when we grow financially, also more problems come about. As Puffy used to say, more money, more problems. I have new levels, new devils, you know. And yeah, so I'll read something. I used to always like the soldier story, and part of what I do, my act, I do a rendition of Sergeant Waters from the soldier story. All right, you baseball niggas, the Eddie's over. Black folk can have no time to pussyfoot around. White folks is watching. We have to be on our game. This is a time for stars, and none of that lacking. And those weak excuses for a man and a black man. I remember when Negroes first got the opportunity to fight World War II. White soldiers were losing their lives in abundance. They were being slaughtered. And then someone said, an operational command center, look over there. In the area of black folk, we can use the niggas. We can't lose those goddamn Nazis, Swatzers. No other country in the world hates us more than we hate each other. No matter what you do, they still hate you. perfect family. They still hate you, kids on the dean's list. They still hate you, family drug-free. They still hate you, no kids out of wedlock. They still hate you, never been arrested. They still hate you, student loans paid in full. They still hate you, always carrying yourself with respect. They still hate you, never yes abousing, never. They still hate you. And when you lose momentum, you lose control. Fear of reprisal consumes you. Fear of equality consumes you. Hell, I'll never get used to Negroes with bars on the top of their shoulders. Again, they still hate you. Give me my damn medal. Why should I wait 60 years to receive a Medal of Valor from a president that didn't direct me to the war in the first place? Because they still hate you, and they always will.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
What made you decision to have all your hat and all these, your hands in all these pots?
How you say in Spanish? Crazy as hell? No, I was just a person that had an interest in a lot of different things, all related to media. You know, so, you know, if it wasn't writing books, it was doing films. Oh, I left out the part when I talked about those jazz documentaries. Where the first one, Billy Bang, actually for like, I don't know, about 16 years, I was a jazz guitarist. So in the 80s and the early 90s, I was in Europe and all over the country playing in jazz festivals. Like, you know, Billy Bang Quartet would be with Betty Carter Quartet would be there, Miles, Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius. These type of people were on the bill at that time, you know. So I just constantly was doing things that were very creative. And like now, basically, you know, the stories that I write, the films that I write are basically about, you know, Black people being successful. And even if we doing crime, God damn it, we get away with it. You know, I've never wrote a story where, you know, we actually like get locked up. Either we're on the run and we go from here to Mogadishu as an adventure, you know, or we get acquitted. But there are no sad stories, you know, that Oscar Sanders writes. Either you're triumphant because you were acquitted, or either you were running for the rest of your life like the fugitive, but you were free. You know, and that was the type. That's the Oscar Sanders type of story that I tell. You know, so there's no government happy ending. We don't do propaganda here. You know, as they do most on television with NCIS and everything else. Is just, you know, I was like, you know, it's just they're just selling law enforcement, or they're selling law enforcement jobs and military jobs to like teenagers. You know, so basically those are people that watch NCIS, those are people that watch FBI, those are people that watch Law and Order, and we never win. I remember when I met Fred Williamson, he told a story, and I still talk to Fred. He lives in France now. But Fred Williamson said to me, he said, that's why I went to Japan and got my money and made my films, because he said I was gonna get the girl. He said I wasn't gonna be no informant. He said I wasn't going to kill nobody. I mean, he said, no, I wasn't going to be no informant. He said I wasn't going to be no drug addict. And he said I had to win. I had to kick everybody's ass. And at the end of the movie, I had to be standing there. He said Tom Cruise wasn't the only guy that was going to do that. And I was like, you know, and that was a golden age. I loved the 70s because Black folk were international, like film stars. I remember, you know, Fred Williamson, these guys were in like Hong Kong in the 70s. You know what I mean? We can't get from between Atlanta, Brooklyn, and Compton. Those were all our stories are like right in those three places. I mean, but back then, Cleopatra Jones. I mean, we had black chicks kicking ass in China. It was like amazing. I was like, wow. I went to the movies and it was amazing. So I always loved the story and telling the story, but letting us win. Because we always stereotyped to like, lose, and everybody's watching us. And they always watch us lose a lot of times. And idiots, formulate that as their own reality, So I take that reality, that we're going to be smarter than the government, So.
All right. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
All right. We have next Anthony Woods. Please tell us about yourself, your books, where we can find you and your books.
Queenie, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm sitting here learning from all of y'all. It's I have my first book. Y'all teaching me a lot. So I'm just I'm actually jotting down notes. And like I said, thank you for having me. My book is called Black Man Hill. It's about an all too common topic about how men can suffer in silence and not talk about their problems. It's kind of a memoir about what I've been through. I was suffering through depression at the cleaning business, kind of went in the dumps, and I was actually suffering in silence. No one knew. I came out the house happy, talking with everybody like everything was okay. But when I went back in the house, I had those conversations with myself about how I'm not doing so well. I'm a loser. I'm this and I'm that, and I was actually about to commit suicide because of those conversations with myself. And I didn't know it was going to lead into a book. I was actually trying to climb the ladder of the real estate game, and people were doubting me, saying I couldn't sell a house. And then once I crossed that $1 million $1 million volume of sold houses, I kind of put that out there on Facebook, kind of rubbing people in faces, saying, yeah, look what I did. And Ilona Washington, my publisher and editor, she caught wind of it and asked me to come on her show, Power from Pain, just to tell my story, tell what I've been through. And then after the interview, she said, you should write a book. And I was like, maybe I should. And, I went home and I started thinking about it, and I contacted her and asked her, what can I do to write a book? She said, I can help you along the way. And Black Man Hill was formed 8 months later. To be honest, I didn't take it that seriously at first, until I started talking to other men that was going through the same problems as me. And I had a meeting with like 10 men, and we had an open dialogue and how they're going through the same things I'm going through. It's not just me. So I wanted to put a little more seriousness into the book. I talk about a lot of things in what happened to me in the book. One touchy topic was in the book is how I got molested by my mom's boyfriend as a child. Now, I wasn't gonna put that in there, but I'm always an upfront and open guy, like to tell the truth, so I put that in there. And I actually thought I was gonna get joked and ridiculed, but I wasn't, man. Men was inboxing me saying how they went through the same thing and how me telling my story allowed them to tell their story or actually deal with it or go get counseling about, what happened with them. So I'm gonna read a little bit of the first, before I go into that. So my dad, he also suffered in silence. He didn't tell anybody. He was the happy-go-lucky, making everybody smile and laugh. And he was also going through some stuff. He actually killed 4 people at his job because he didn't have an outlet. It was all depression. And then one day he snapped, and he's right now, he's serving life in prison. And I just didn't want to be like him in that sense. So I started to start talking to people, start getting counseling. And here I am now with a book that's kind of inspiring people, it's kind of inspiring men to talk about their story also. So I'm gonna read just a little bit from the book. I'm not gonna hold y'all too long. There's an old saying that all men carry a story in their minds that the world knows nothing about. Sometimes that story can be a positive one, and you can tell it's a positive one by the patience he has with mankind. But if he carries around a negative, colorless biography, that impact can be dangerous for himself and to others. Like most men, I hid my depression very well. Like a man walking around with a concealed firearm, ready to snap at any moment. Why do I make that strong analogy? Because of my father, Willie Woods. I'm sure you have heard of him. A month after the O.J. Simpson car chase in California, there was an office shooting months after that left 4 people dead. That shooter was my father. Simply put, my father didn't know how to handle the daily stresses in his life, and he didn't talk to anyone about his problems. So that's basically, well, Black Man Hill. At the end of the story, it gets a little smoother. I met my new lady, and I'm learning how to deal with talking with people, because before I didn't. Now I'm in counseling once a month. I talk to my lady. If it's a problem, sometimes I write it down. I don't have those thoughts inside of me. I mean, like some Black men would just hold that stuff in there.
And tell us where we can get your book from.
You get it from Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can always contact me on Facebook, Anthony Woods. Yeah, that's where's it at.
Okay. Since you are the fit realtor, will you ever write books about sports?
Yeah, actually, when I came out with the book, people were surprised that I didn't. They thought that was gonna be my first book. When I put Black Man Hill, they said, "You ain't never been depressed. We ain't never seen you depressed. You always happy." And that's when I knew that book needed to come out. So the book about fitness, I probably won't, because fitness is like a personal thing for me. And trying to help everybody out with fitness, it doesn't work for me. So I kind of do fitness for myself. I want to write more about real life situations. I do want to write another book. I don't know how. I don't know what the title is going to be or anything like that, but I do want to write another book about real life situations. Yeah, I'm from Philly. I didn't get a chance to say that, but I'm from Philly. I like my Eagles. I don't know what y'all team is, but the game coming. I'm glad the sports is back on. My book dropped in March, right when the pandemic hit. So being a new author, that kind of like held me back a little, because I didn't know how to navigate through the challenges. Like I guess some of the authors know how to do. I didn't know how to do that. So I was just promoting on Facebook, and I kind of fell back. But then when I saw Queenie had posted this, I said I had to get back on and try to promote my book a little bit more. You know, people want to hear my story. People that actually bought my book wants me to tell more about it. So I'm gonna keep promoting it again like I was before, and keep doing what you too, Queenie. You're awesome.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. And last we have Michael Young. Tell us about yourself, your books, and where we can find you and your books.
Hello, Miss Queenie, and good afternoon, gentlemen. I am Michael Young. I am an adult urban fiction writer from Louisville, Kentucky. I write for Royal Media and Publishing, headed by Julia Royston. I am a 30-year auto worker at Ford Motor Company, Louisville Assembly Plant. I began writing because I was, not inspired, but I was told by my wife that I should write a book after finding a folder of old short stories I had wrote when I was in high school up to into my 20s. So she convinced me to do something with it. My first book I put out, Is Happiness Worth the Pain, is a book of a woman who works in a factory who gets tired of that life and decides to act upon the degree she has and goes into the corporate world. And finding her new job, she advances in her life. New friends, new opportunities, a new man in her life. But as things start to go well for her, and also her friends that's been lifelong friends, sickness comes in, a vengeful boyfriend comes in, and a tragic event comes in. So through all this, she is wondering, was it really worth it? all this problem that happened to me just because I decided to change what I was doing, was it really worth me trying to be happy? The second book I put out, To Protect and Serve, A City in Panic, that is the story of a city that's going through a turmoil. There's something going on in the city that the mayor doesn't want the public to find out about. There's a killer that's going around attacking random women. And before the media gets a hold of this situation, he wants his two best detectives to catch this killer and bring him in. Just so happens his two best detectives are women, and they are charged with finding this person and bringing him to justice. My third book, Wildest Dreams, that is set at an age-old question: what would you do if you got to meet or work for your celebrity crush? I know just about everybody has a celebrity crush, and if it happened to you, what would you do if you got to work for them and they had a crush on you? They begin to like you and want you. Could you deal with their celebrity lifestyle? And if you said yes, what would happen if you had a college sweetheart that happens to come back into the picture? Would you go with the celebrity, or would you go for the college crush? That's what that book involves. My last book I've put out just this year, Forgotten Lies. That is a story of a couple who moves to the country for a new life and new work. And once they move into this new house, they find that the house has a dark history to it. There's been a murder committed in this house. And upon meeting and becoming friends with the new neighbors, they get a backstory of what happened. But as they go through the town, they get more backstory, and none of the stories really seem to match up with what the other person is saying. And the woman who's in the house, she starts seeing shadow figures in the house. Then she begins to wonder, is everybody who died in this house, are they really dead? Is there someone still here, or is there a spirit there that wants them out? I'm trying to go as quick as possible. I'm going to read a small 3-4 paragraphs from my second book, Protect and Serve. This is from the introduction. A cat sits upon a dented garbage can, watching its prey scurry about on the ground in a dimly lit alley. Just as the cat was about to pounce on the tiny mouse, the sound of panicked footsteps echoed through the chilled night air. The cat hissed and ran away as the woman came rushing past, knocking the can over as she looked back in the darkness for her pursuer. Not seeing or hearing anyone now, the woman hides behind a dumpster trying to hold her breath. She figured doing what they don't do in horror movies could actually save her life. Listening closely for the sounds of footsteps, the scared woman slowly begins to emerge from her hiding spot. I see you, the ominous voice says very deeply out of the distant darkness. Overcome by fear, the scared damsel freezes in place and urinates on herself. The tears roll down her face like a waterfall in the jungle. She wanted to run, but didn't know which way to go. Where did that sinister voice come from? Just then, a flashlight caught the corner of her eye, and a sting of pain radiated in her back. Screaming, she whipped around to see a bloody knife being pulled back by a black gloved hand. Now, you have a wet back to go with that wet ass of yours, you nasty, nasty whore. Falling to her knees, she reached around to touch where the sting was. Looking down at her hand, she saw that it was covered in dripping blood, her blood. Whoever this was had stabbed her. Why? Why did he pursue her? She hadn't done anything to anyone. Crying out, she asked, why? Why did you do this? Why me? Why me? Why? Because you was there. That's why, you little whore. All my books are maybe 100 to 140 pages long. I want to hold my readers' attention just for a small amount of time in their day, just to give them a release from the hectic lives they may go through. And I try to make every chapter in all of my books very interesting. I want it to be a page turner. I don't want to have any dead spots in any of my books. You I want you to read and say, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Okay, one more chapter, then I'm going to bed. One more chapter, then I'm going to bed. Then by the time you get to that last chapter, the book is done.
All right, where can we find you and your books?
My books are available on Amazon. I believe they're still available on Barnes & Noble. You can look for me on Facebook. I have 2 pages, Michael Young. I also have a Young Productions, which is dedicated strictly to my books. If you inbox me, give me your information, I will respond with my Cash App information, and I'll mail it to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps it up. Do anybody have anything else they would like to add before we close?
I just want to say I really was taken by the book Black Man Healed, and I want to buy that book. And also Oscar, that was awesome the way he presented his excerpt. I mean, that was just brilliantly done. And I also want to pick up his work too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes,
Nick?
definitely.
Yeah, and so I wanted to also mention to everyone that's here on the panel and everyone that's viewing that I've got a promotion that's running right now for a free digital copy of my book on Amazon.com. Again, you can search for myself, Nikia Anderson, so Nikia Anderson on Amazon. Right now, the promotion lasts through the 30th. So again, enjoy your free gift. It's my way of saying thank you for all that you guys have contributed to today, and for those that are viewing, for your inspiration that you provided to me.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Y'all can all just leave your books in the inbox.
Thanks so much for having me.
Doing all that, yeah.
It was great. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Yeah, I never got to say my contact information. I forgot. Yeah, basically, you can follow me on Twitter at Oscar Sanders, and Instagram Oscar Sanders 2202, and to buy Exposing Politics or Final Hearing. You hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. To find Exposing Politics or Final Hearing, I autograph it personally on my website. So you go to malcolmentertainment.com, and at malcolmentertainment.com you go to the Malcolm Shop, and at the Malcolm Shop you can get the book there. And with that, we go to a commercial, right?
Kenneth, did you want to say something?
Yes, I enjoyed all the presentations. I was inspired by the authors. You guys all did a great job. And thank you, Queenie, also for this platform.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, good.
Yes, I'm just glad I was able to come on today. This is very inspiring. Thank you for having this.
Thank you. Elliot?
Yes, I do. First of all, Queenie, thank you for having us on here. I really do appreciate it. It was a great opportunity. It's been a blessing. I want to say the topics that my man covered in Black Man Healed, I'll tell you, I'm so glad that he's addressing mental health in the Black community and putting this out there. This is something that Dr. Paul Denman and I have worked on for years down in Houston as an organization called Man Alive, and dealing with helping men get better with dealing with emotional intelligence and developing that. So this book that he's coming out with, A Black Man Healed, is like a right now type of book. So I want to grab a hold of that. I'm going to pass that information on to all my people down here in Houston that this book is out here. On the flip side, if y'all want to also follow me on Instagram, just J Elliott Howard, JELLIOTHOWARD. If you put 2 T's in there, you're not going to find me. The same thing if you type in on Amazon.com, you type in J Elliott Howard, both Rewritten Lives and Take a Walk with Me will pop up. And the books are also available in paperback, hardback, and ebook. And you can always reach me here on Facebook and on the Rewritten Lives Facebook page. Thank you, Queenie, for having me, and thank you guys for sharing your works. I love all of what y'all are doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, guys.
Yes.
It was.
It's a pleasure for everyone, and continued success in everyone's endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Good luck to all you brothers out there. I really appreciate y'all input, and that brother with that Black Man Healed, where you speaking my life right there with that depression. But thank you, Queenie, for the opportunity. And this was my first interview, so I was kind of nervous. So thank you for warming me up to something new on my journey with this writing. And y'all keep them pens moving. and them keyboards pumping, you know.
All right. If all minds are clear, thank you, men, for coming in today. And don't forget, tomorrow we have the women. So have a blessed day.